Hey everyone, how are you doing? Well, it's Wednesday. Good to see you. I hope everything is going good. And hello. So, well, let's see, a lot going on. Actually texting while I'm driving. I don't do that stuff. But that's the best thing I can give to in a comparison. So there you go. I'm driving in and watching. Well, hello, everyone. So good to see everybody. So welcome all the moderators. Thank you. And to all the rest of you beautiful people. Today we're going to take it a little bit light. This Lilith series, it's deep, man. It's not for the weak of mind. As we're all finding out, I'll tell you what, I've sent out hundreds and hundreds of the book, so it's around the world, and it does have a opening for you. There's no doubt about it. I got lots of emails, and it's wonderful. So I thought today, because the next couple of sessions, those of you who've read the book, it's starting to get, little more intense. I mean, it's odd that you could say that because the book is intense. Could it get more intense? Oh yeah. I'm not going to do the invocations. Not wise. The thing about power, folks, remember this: as you become more awake to your divinity, your sovereignty. And I read a wonderful, wonderful email from a delightful, well-awoke soul from Ireland. And you know who you are. And welcome, Ireland. Apparently we got lots of listeners over there, all over the world. Had another good conversation with a fine gentleman down in Melbourne. So anyway, many of you are starting to get it. We have got to start learning that we are the gods. And it's not a doctrine. It's not a dogma. It's replete in virtually every religion, philosophy, when you really get into it. We are the gods. And here's the thing, folks. Remember this. Those of us who are of that spirit, who carry the spark of divinity within us, divine spirits don't worship other spirits. They don't worship other divinity. Divine spirits don't worship. Just telling you, they just don't. That's what makes this unique. Now, as we found out, as Lilith has said, well, there's a lot of other lesser class spirits out there. They are. Someone wrote me about, where did you come up with the knowledge that you had legions of spirits that serve you? And I said, well, it's, as a former Christian, I knew that back in the 80s. Book of Psalms, Proverbs, Habakkuk is another one. Book of Hebrews, all says that. So that wasn't anything new for me. What was new is that how they are attracted. When you activate that spark of divinity within you, and it does become active, it sends off a frequency. And in the spirit realm, it's like a light beacon. And you'd be surprised at how many lower class spirits look to serve the sparks of divinity. And anyway, yeah, I didn't know that's here. There you go. Knowledge is spreading. spreading everywhere. By the way, let me just invoke great favor upon all of you, and me. You know, I understand the power of words. You know, what people don't understand, when you can stand in an attack and you can merely begin to think that, well, you know, someone wrote me, well, I'm rubber, you're glue. It's more true than what people realize. But there was something I learned, you know, on all those decades of studying the Bible, and that is, there's no weapon formed against me that can prosper. Every word spoken against me shall be proven wrong and devoid of any power or effect upon me. You know, you'd be like that Banny Rooster. And more today, isn't it true? We really do live in this time of red pill, blue pill. Hello there, Warrior King. We're going to have Lois on Friday. So let's, you know, let's see if we can all put in a few shekels in there and get some people fed over her and her food pantry. Sherry Spears, good to see you, dear. Charlotte and all the rest. Kathleen, I can just, Chelsea Rose, hello. This was weird, Wayne. Went off and blanked. Well, you know, the spirits are active. That's all I can say, folks. Had a delightful conversation with a person down in Houston yesterday, and the experiences, folks, it's getting intense. And I've had some really great conversations via emails with some very brilliant people. And one said, well, you know, you do realize, hello, is that Nicholas? Hello, good to see you. Mark Smith, hello. Frisk, Simply Divine, hello. He said, well, you know, your channel has probably done more of intensifying the energy flow to Lilith. And he says, you know, not many people in history can say that. Did we help that Liber Lilith, folks? Powerful book, powerful book. And I'm doing well. Thank you, Consciously Aware. Doing very well. You know, we have definitely, I think, pissed off the other gods, which I contend are all one and the same. You know, this kind of information you don't want out. You just don't, whether it be true, whether it not be true. All of us are making the correlation and the connection. You know, you read this and you can read part of it well into the Hebrew religion, the Christian religion, the Muslim religion, the Hindu religion. This book seems to permeate all of the belief systems. That's weird. I mean, it really is. And as a person, I can sit here, I can tell you that, did I not send that? Oh, let me see. There we go. Just realized something. Looked down at the dashboard and said, what? That was actually meant to send about 25 minutes ago. But, you know, when you write that book out, I'm writing my book, and the Liber will be dispersed throughout that. As I tell people, whether it be true or not, it definitely is a different take on the story. If anything, much, much more deeper. I have, where do I have this? By the way, I just got a new book in, folks. So this one ought to be fun. where is that book? I have the Book of Giants, and I went back and was reading that, and I'm going back and reading a lot of the Gnostics, the Apocrypha and the Pseudo-Apocrypha. And lo and behold, guess what I'm finding? The Liber in there. So we're all philosophers here. We're all divine sparks of divinity. I believe that's why we're here. I believe that's what's attracted us here. I've read the stories of so many that you have written to me, how you ended up here. Some would say it'd be almost miraculous. Others said precarious. Yeah, we see it and we feel it. It's interesting because this is a time for us, I think, to kind of decompress a little bit where this book is concerned. For me, I realize that, the spirit of Lilith was, we could call it channeling, we could call it communicating. Cool, T-Bone. Someone approve that. T-Bone TV, that's cool. I'll do that. So it's powerful. We know it. And the essence of what Lilith is, I mean, now I see where I was getting the information when I was doing the Bloodline Invader series, then subsequently breaking the Godspell, and then subsequently why does the world worship the serpent? It all connects for me. And I don't know if my distant relative, namesake, whether that did anything at all. I mean, that's interesting. Cautiously aware. Okay, that's cool. But anyway, here we are. And for me, marvelous insights. And for, I guess, for where I stand with Lilith is that I wouldn't mess with the woman. Because the thing that we have to, for me, is that I finally made the connection that whether you call Yahweh God or whether you call whoever God, Lilith is still there. In essence, the world has been worshiping Lilith all along. Well, thank you. You're going to take the blue pill. All right. That's cool. Space, that's cool. And isn't it so? I mean, you think about what we got going here, the metaphor, what we now all know. You think about it. If you had this T-shirt back in 1985, people would not have had a clue as to what the hell you were talking about. Now today, we all understand that, yeah, we apply the allegory, the metaphor, to so much of the journey that so many of us are on. You ever think about that? By the way, think about reincarnation. All right. Number one, it's insanity, but let's just take it for face value that there's substance to it. Here's the thing. You shouldn't worry about dying because, don't worry about missing the future. If the Jetsons ever come to pass, by the theory, you're going to be flying the car anyway. Think about that. And then there's this. I'll choose the red, not going back. Oh, no, that's just funny. That when you look at this, you suddenly see, well, okay, this is a matrix. And I found it odd in the word study of the Liber that that word matrix is used by these gods. And I contend this, ladies and gentlemen, from all that I have read and will continue to read, it's all around the same thing. It is. I think we're here to save these gods. I mean, just the Liber alone and what we're about to get into, heavy sexual content. And I think to myself, there's a song like that. What if you take them both? Well, they call that a highball, Joe. That when we look about where we are now, we realize that these gods, they seem to be stuck. You know, if you're watching the American God series on Stars, I think it's on Netflix as well. That's the story. These gods have become so debased. Even their view of righteousness and holiness is debased. They can't seem to rise above the sexuality of the physical body. And hey, that's a good idea, Mary. I will. I have it in my files, and I'll pull that out for tomorrow's show. That's a great idea. Franny sent me a picture that, yeah, was spot on, of Samuel and Lilith. So they can't seem to pull themselves out of it. Now, isn't it odd that for myself, in the view of sexuality, there is a process that I think that a mature soul begins to go through, that it's no longer a lust of expression, but it's an expression of a love. And, you know, that rises the whole frequency of the topic of sex right there. I mean, I haven't seen anything in the Liber that remotely resembles love. Not in the least. Makes you think, doesn't it? Wow. And as I look at this matrix, if there's one thing that we all have to learn, and the good friend from Ireland was writing about this, he says, I figured it out when you told me that we've got to challenge these gods. Don't accept their BS, their gospel. Remember, gospel is just another word for Godspell. Now, we all use spells. It's just the environment we're in. You know, we're swimming in a pool that, well, think about this. We're in this environment, we're immersed into it. It's everywhere. Saturates every part of the physical matter. All right. When you finally begin to figure it out, is the first time you pop your head above the water and you take in that first breath and you begin to look around you and you realize that you, I, all of us, we're immersed in a firmament that we hadn't perceived before. Now, I look at it from an atmospheric thing. You think about the atmosphere that we live in. It dominates everything about our existence. where you could say, metaphorically, we're immersed in the atmosphere. And I think that's what's happened here. I think we're realizing we are immersed in this reality. And it sucks. And listen, I asked the question, and I'm always curious to see people's answer. Where is it written that we have to worship any God? Why do we have to worship a God? Is it something that we're forced, or is it something genetically that we're pre-programmed, predispositioned to worship something? It seems like sapiens fall into making idols. They carve things and then they start praying to it. Why is that? Why is it that we seem to be drawn to worship a thing? And when you say, no, I won't, now you become the odd person out. You get the mark upon you. And that mark, by the way, is not only seen in this realm, but it's seen in the spiritual realm as well. As I told you, the beacons of light go off. The spirit realm sees it. And yeah, Patrick, I would say we are brainwashed. My goal is, when we get this summit together, it's got to be done rightly, is to denounce all gods. And by the way, I recommend that you do the same. If you've ever taken the sinner's prayer, any type of confession, invocation, renounce it. You can legally. You see, all religions are predicated on fraud. So in the higher realms, they're null and void. And you should publicly proclaim. I read one person who said, went out their backyard and just screamed it out. I mean, just let it out. Let all the gods know. And I believe it was, I've read several of them, he's and she's, but they said the most amazing thing happened when they got this out right from the spirit. They said it was like this veil lifted. They were immersed in what one person wrote, in a peace that they had never experienced before. It's what happens. Now, what we can expect as well, because, you know, the title of this is Deconstruction Creation from the Ending. You know, the problem that I see is that we've gotten so hung up in trying to figure out how that very beginning started, and that's difficult. I don't know if we ever will. I think the Liber, for me, and I've read, you know, the Colburn, I've read a number of other variations on the creation story, myth, whatever, but approaching it in the opposite direction. What are we looking at today, ladies and gentlemen? We're looking at a time right now. We're seeing a change. I sense in the firmament realm, that realm above us, that goes who never knows how far. I think there's been a change of the guard. Are we the tip of the spear of that? I don't know. Humanity is heading for an event. I think it's very clear that our world is changing. Yesterday's program with Patrick, talking to the planets, was powerful. Well, thank you, Space. I'm writing on it. It was up to about 1:30. Let me tell you, don't try to write a book when you're tired. I read it this morning. I went, what the hell are you thinking? But I got the contents. But anyway, I digress. But that was powerful. We've got to transcend the bigotry of our species. And our species are bigots. We're racists. Because what they stole from us was this. We get divided on the minutia when we need to be unified on the whole front. We are sapiens. You can say sapien sapiens. What we do know that we are mankind. We have genders that represent our species, but we're still a species. And why should our species be worshiping another species? Look how many of us we have murdered because our species worships something that we could never see. They've kept us divided. Someone personally attacks you. The way you do it today is that you snipe back. No. No weapon formed against me can prosper. None. And if we could start becoming unified on that, and that's what the Liber has shown to me. It has shown me a complex construct. And, I could take this from the view of a completely, just simply from a humanistic point of view and say, all right, well, I don't believe in any of these gods. Well, that's cool. But we can't come out and say as a species then that we are of our own. I think that's a fate worse than being in this matrix as it is. I mean, talk about a waste. Actually, that's a curse. Because our species can't, we do everything we can now to begin to try to understand the heavens, try to understand what the universe is, its complexity. We're realizing that our ideas, our theories are wrong, and now we're having to replace them with new. And, there has to be something more than just merely physical matter. The ether is. And if the ether is, so are we. Yeah, Joe Sapien. Yeah. By the way, Joe, email me. I want to get you on. I think we would have a delightful hour conversation. Well, thank you, Ruby. So I think if this is one thing that, could you imagine? Now, we represent a huge threat. If this virus that we are, and a virus is a terminology of life. It's a metaphor of the fact that viruses live beyond humans. Viruses rewrite DNA. Viruses rewrite reality. We are one. We are a virus to this system. Could you imagine that you would see in the United States Congress two people from the exact polar opposites get on the floor of the House of Representatives and say, we are no longer going to serve this matrix. We're no longer going to serve this God, this power structure. We are here to declare that we are sparks of divinity, and we will no longer separate ourselves because of cheap pitiful, ignorant dogmas, political stances. We hereby now recognize that we sapiens are divine. Could you imagine that? Can you imagine if that was begin to happen in the United States Senate? Could you imagine it happen in Canada? Could you imagine it happening in the House of Lords? Could you imagine every government, two that were opposed, come together and make the declaration? You know what we would see, folks? You would see a fireworks show up in the heavens and the sky beyond man's capacity to think. Because we would truly be pulling the curtain back on the wizard. And I happen to believe that, yeah, Joe, actually they can, viruses can actually, get this, exist for millions of years. So, I think they hijacked the previous attempts of messages of the messengers that have come forward, trying to tell us that you're divine. Wake up. You don't need a God. You don't need any God. Now people say, well, then humanity will destruct. Let's talk about that type of philosophy. If your whole belief system is predicated that you need a God, an unseen God, to define your behavior, and without that, then that you would just simply disintegrate, you were never meant to exist to begin with. Period. If you need an unseen deity to define your morals, then you lack empathy for the species of sapiens. It's the biggest insult. It's, it sounds like it's a compliment, but it's the biggest insult that we cannot manage ourselves, that we have to make idols, whether it be a cross, a crescent moon, a star, whatever. It's not progression. So that's what the Liber has taught me. It's shown me that for the first time, questions that I had about the God that I once served, I saw its nature. Saw that nearly 45 years ago, but I could never reconcile. You don't want to accept it. One how this God is blessing, and the next thing he's cursing. And we always bet the butt end of it. I don't see it going around busting anyone else's chops. It's ours. It's sapiens. You're cursed this, you're going to curse that. How many of you ever read the 28th chapter of Deuteronomy? Isn't it odd that the blessings are only like 14 verses, but the curses go on and on and on and on and on? And yeah. I mean, at some point, I guess, like I said, Lilith is no saint here. I mean, respect her authority. That's all I got to say. Because if you don't respect her authority, she'll put a whooping on you that teach you a real thing. And, listen, I'm convinced as well. The God in current duration, it ain't too pleased with us either. We're its worst nightmare coming to pass. But the thing about it is, folks, you and I were foretold about. Yes. In many of what I think people have misinterpreted, so much of the writings of the ancestors, I think what they were trying to say, they got to see the future. And believe it or not, we are that future. That sounds weird, but think about it. I have a playful little spirit around here that likes to come in and tickle my nose. And you see, they do exist. So, but yeah, I don't think it's too happy about, because we represent change. We are the change. And again, that's what Lilith, I think, is showing. You know, she did say in there that the invisible spirit, the pure light that's in us, and that's the thing that you walk away both repulsed and enchanted. And I use that word enchanted correctly because it's quite the enchantment. I mean, for me, it did not surprise me when it finally dawned on me that the God of this world, the God that every religion prays to, worships, is the serpent. And that serpent has a consort, its other side. And we've seen her represented all over the world, many different names, but all leading back to the same. You see someone else got it too. So I'm always messing with our nose, man. It's like, I actually, one evening I was writing in here and I just took a break and was just kind of meditating and heard the giggle. It's like, okay. So, yeah, I'm just reading some of this kind of interactive day. I kind of enjoy it to see, what's going on there. Hey, and there's 333 people. There we go. So I think we're ushering in this change. Now, here's the other side. What I also see of humanity, we're changing. We all want to live, but I got to tell you what, it's that question I asked, that one video, if you could live forever, would you? Would you want to live in your body? And let's say your body, we could regress the genes and bring you back to your prime, let's say for all of us 18 to 22. Sad that is our prime, but yeah, it tells you how much we've been messed with. But would you want to live 1,000 years in that body? I don't know. I don't think so. For me, I've enjoyed it. It's fine. But when, the number is called, I'm going to do like when I'm bored. I'm an elite flyer, so I'm usually the first guy standing in line. I am. I can board before everyone else. You go with that first group, but yeah. And I will sometimes get there 30, 40 minutes before everybody else. You know why? Because I've learned to meditate standing with my eyes open. But again, this body, as Cat Stevens said, it's been a good friend of mine, but I won't need it when I am past that time. And I think actually, but you get the idea. It's a great song, by the way. T for the Tillerman. Yeah, I see what happens to these bodies when they start getting 75, 80, 85. Yeah. And some of them's not pretty. we just saw recently with, who was it? Luke Perry? 5152, gone. So I think when you get to that point, spiritually, now it allows you to really get focused. You know, we're heading for some interesting times. Let me just give you, I didn't know that, Joe. You see, isn't it interesting how certain bodies, y'all can see that in the chat room. Yeah. I wrote to someone, can I give you my quick presentation? It's not a PowerPoint. I'm just going to speak this, that you see, God, when it created this body, really, as marvelous as it is, it's not perfect. And what does that tell us? How can a perfect make imperfect? Wouldn't it replicate itself? So if these are not perfect, then that's not perfect. Now, we know it can be improved on. If I was on the engineering team of rebuilding these bodies, I'd want to begin to engineer where there would never have to be the consumption of matter, plant, flesh of any kind, nor would there have to be the necessity to drink. I would allow the body then to begin to compensate for these other areas and skeletal development, muscular development in these key areas. You wouldn't need a digestive system. So imagine what you could do with these other organs. And we know that you can do that through the skin. Our skins have the capability, and I think that's how they were originally designed, to take all the nutrients from the atmosphere, all of it. And imagine that. I mean, that's just one of the key components. But so think about that. Oh, this has been I'm really enjoying this because it's been a journey. I mean, we have spent nearly 2 weeks on this, and I just kind of felt that we all just needed a little bit of a break and just to have a chance just to kind of just talk amongst ourselves. By the way, one of the things I learned out of the book of Proverbs was this: if you're suffering from arthritis, check yourself inside. Here's the thing about arthritis, is that it's the dryness of the bones, is what it's called, literally. And you know what? This dates back thousands and thousands of years. Anger. And I would add depression on top of that. Dries the bones. So that's why we have to laugh. You got to. I woke up this morning with Hotel California in my head. Now, isn't that a good way to wake up? I'm saying. And, that's just how you go. So Truth Seeker says, yep, well known. And it's so true. I think that we could actually reverse many of these attacks on our body. I mean, the stories are out there of people who've laughed themselves well again. I keep asking you, how many times in your day do you laugh? How many times in your day do you find joy? Is joy even a part of your experience each day? Do you find joy, or have you lost it? This day after day just seems to be another drudge of another step on a path. No, I think a lot of us here, we figured this one out. We're going to laugh. We're going, and we deal in some serious stuff. Jeff Doherty, I mean, I enjoy our show because it's an opportunity. We deal with off topic, serious, but we can always do it with joy. And I think that that's the one thing they tried to steal from us the most is joy. I mean, when you're trying to make a living and you got bills to pay and, the world's just going crazy and you're seeing it and you're going around and around and you go, well, where can I get joy? Well, look at that beautiful face of yours. I don't care if it's in the 20s or I don't care if it's in the 70s, 80s, 90s. The spirit within never ages. Never. And look at it this way. This time going out, you, baby, you are smart. You're brilliant. Good, Joe. Thanks. And I think that's how I challenge the spirits. I had one try to come in yesterday, and they're sneaky little bastards. They're the guys that try to do the hit and run thing, and I'm getting better at it. I put that net out there. But it's true. And I think that if more of us began to take the spookiness out of it, as I showed you yesterday, in the Christian religion, all you have to do is take 1 Corinthians 12. That's about as much spiritualist as you could ever imagine. Could you imagine that, we turn to the term prophet, a seer, but no, these were gifts of the Spirit. 9 different gifts, each divided into 3 different categories. I apply that now to the magic that I work, and it works seamlessly. Remember, Paul had the Liber Lilith. And now as I see how he's sewn it through his writings, I know where he got the hierarchy from. It's very plain to see. And if you were a magician, a witch, and by the way, witch means wise woman. That's all it means. And you had that knowledge, you would have knowledge, let's say, in your village that no one else would possess. That would make you a very powerful shaman, healer, sorcerer, wizard, even a goddess, a god. So, yeah. Oh, man, I'll tell you, we're going to get on with it. And, as I was putting, the show together for tomorrow, you just look at this and I literally walk away from it, folks. And I shake my head. I mean, even if I probably had never read the Liber Lilith, Joe, there you go. See, he's a wizard with words. Many of us are. I knew this something got broke in this reality. It's a broken reality. We don't even know what pleasure and pain are. Sometimes they're almost interdispersed, and it's difficult. It's difficult for us when we try to rationalize the senseless violence. Try to rationalize weather events where people die. Trying to rationalize how other people have such a low consideration for life. How we hurt each other. My wife is a wonderful, wonderful soul. And, you know, when you have that perfect attraction, you learn a lot. And words are the things that we have learned. We've learned that if we have emotions, and we do, and, you know, sometimes, you know, couples have disagreements. What we've learned is to simply say nothing at all. And it changes, it transmutes the entire spirit of the room. And that's when I began to discover that really what we're doing, what we're feeling, is not so much an outside presence as it is our inward presence being projected out. It's like hearing yourself the first time on a recording. You say, well, that's not me. Now I know what I sound like. It's normal to me. And I think that's how it works as well. Well, this has been just, hasn't this been fun? I mean, this really is. This is just, you know, I get accused of being sometimes, you know, way too serious. Yeah, sometimes, you know, but I'm on a mission, and, you know, we've got to, got a lot of stuff to cover. I mean, we do. While we got the time, and I don't know how long that time is. I don't know. There's times when I get a sense I can tell you what I have already seen. How many of you have heard about what's happening in the retail market? There is they termed it this term. I didn't. There's an apocalypse taking place. Here is wisdom. Let he or she who hear consider this very carefully. It's already starting, folks. It's the collapse. It's already starting. And I am alarmed from a certain perspective that you're not hearing this on the local news, unless you follow the markets. We're seeing a retail collapse of a complete retail structure. And there's nothing to replace them. So anyway, well, thank you, Susie. You're pretty far out yourself. I enjoy hanging out with y'all as well. So folks, just be aware, man. You know, listen, we don't motivate by fear. Things are going to happen. We know it. And it's not because some God's pissed off, and it's not because of some ancient book that, you know, is supposedly now coming to pass. Listen, all prophecy is written by man or woman. All prophecy is self-fulfilled by man or woman. There's no God. There's no divine intervention that is moving us on a chessboard, because if that was the case, and I'm talking about the book of Revelation that everyone gets their panties in a wad about, it's self-fulfilling, folks. When are you going to realize that? And if we wrote it, we can change it. It's simple as that. And I look forward to the day when some God will manifest before humanity. You know why they won't? They're afraid. They don't like challenges. They like to always have the upper hand in any type of situation. Here, humanity has changed, and we're changing daily. More and more of us are questioning the God. Isn't it odd that it says in supposedly the Ten Commandments, thou shalt have no other God before me? Are you ready for this? That means every human being would never qualify because we are that other God. How does a God worship another God? Because it says it's the only one? I don't think so. Anyway, so yes, we are the own poets of our own story. Hello, Jimmy Buffett. Folks, y'all are great. Hope this was a little uplifting. It was for me. Good medicine. And enjoy the day. Looks like here in my part of the country, we may have winter lasting till July, they're telling us. Who knows? We are just reading it wrong. And I think consciously aware, I think that's really what it is. I think we had the story. It's just that they edited, they blacklined it. And, so what we did is that we collapsed the sentences. And then we got it. We're going, it kind of reads all right, but, what happened to that? Don't worry about it. just move on along. Nothing here for you to see. And we're going like hell, Did you hear the story, by the way, as I'll close out, of the woman who was getting, I believe it was some car insurance. And she reads every word. She got, I think it was to page 7. And lo and behold, she finds a clause in there and says, if you're the first person to read this and send an email to this email address, you just received $10,000. She was the first. Been there for a long time. The underwriters put it in there. So imagine if we're so quick to do that. Folks, we need to slow down and really think this thing out on the spiritual side of the equation. It's not blasphemy to say that you are a God. It's not. The only blasphemy that we ever do is when we blaspheme ourselves. That's the only sin, if there is such a thing. And if you read the Gnostic Gospel of John and in Mary, you'll find out that the Christ said that. So how could you have some cat being for a human sacrifice? I don't know. Of course that wouldn't happen. We wouldn't want to serve. We don't need to be serving. If anything, we should have a service of each other. I think to serve my fellow man is the highest compliment I can pay to my species. You know why? Because when I graduate, I will be that compassionate God. See, I asked the question, show me this God of love. Where does it exist? It's not in the Bible. It's not in the Torah. It's not in the Quran. It's not in the Vedic. Those gods are not loving gods. I had the answer. I know the answer all the way. I'll tell you where the loving God is. Right here. And if that loving God isn't alive and allowed to love, it will shrink back. And then we truly are lost. Whew. All right. I love philosophy. It's great. I'm telling you. It'll clear the head and allow you to go forward. And I am not going to get caught up on that one. All right. Yeah, it says the God is to save us. Yes, Starseed. Save us from what? It's like that story, the group of humans that were captured by the aliens, and as they're going off to their home world, this was in a Twilight Zone. They couldn't figure out the book. You know, the aliens gave mankind the book, and they couldn't figure out the book until they started translating it. And they realized that the book was nothing more than a cooking recipe for us. All right, folks, you are the best. Thank you. Invoking great favor upon your lives. Thank you all for joining this journey. It's far out, and I'll see you tomorrow. Be good to yourself. Love yourself. You know what? And remember, you have lots and lots of spirits at your disposal. Be wise in how you disperse them. All right, folks, we'll see you later. Bye-bye.